In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a lollipop chart with a stem and a circle or hat. And also, if I refresh this, you can see here the numbers automatically changes nicely. Plus, we can control the colors. We could control a lot of options in here. So let's start look how to create a lollipop chart in chart.js 4, and this is part 1 of the videos. So what we're going to do here first of all is to make sure you have the boiler template. The boiler template you can find here on chartjs3.com getting started, and this link you can find as well in the description box. Once you're on here, make sure you copy this chunk of code here and you're good to go. Next, if you want to support my channel, check out my Patreon page here where you can get the source code of this video and many others. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to create a lollipop chart, but we're going to do it in a very different way. We're going to create a custom chart. So to do this, what we need to do here is start working on the basics of making a custom chart. So the first thing what I'm going to do here is that we're going to create a class. And class is basically a function that creates an object. And what I want to do is I want to create an object that recognizes all the special features specifically geared towards the lollipop chart. So a lollipop chart is just a bar chart with a stem, which is the base or the bar, and then a dot at the very top or the head. So what I'm going to say here, this class, I'm going to give it a name, will be called the lollipop controller. And the reason why I'm going to call this a controller, because we're going to use or we're going to extend, so we're going to extend the chart.bar controller. As I said earlier, it is basically a bar chart with a dot at the very top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say in the chart object, search for the bar controller, and I want to duplicate that, and this will become now the lollipop controller with some modifications. So what we're going to do here is now start to draw. I'm going to put in here the draw, and then in here we're going to say super draw, super.draw. This is essential, and the reason why is because this will allow us to draw anything else. Or at least, sorry, this will draw the basics of the bar controller, so it understands this. If you don't do that, it will not draw them. So once we did this, now we can start to work on going to draw anything else here. So what I'm going to do here is, well, let's start to look. We can say here, eventually what I want to say here, this type will become a lollipop chart, or the type will be lollipop. So let's start to work on making something like this. So we have all of this. I will not go into the details here yet, but what I need next is to create, or at least give the lollipop controller a proper ID. So say lollipop controller.id equals the lollipop chart. Then what I want to do is we're going to say here chart.register. I can get here the lollipop controller. Let's see if it will read, or else we need to activate the defaults. So I'm going to save this, refresh. Alright, so it doesn't work because we need to activate the defaults here. So what I'm going to say here, chart.the bar controller that we are extending, and then this one here, dot defaults, loading all of these defaults here. So if I save this, refresh, alright, interesting, we're getting an error. And I can see here that I misspelled a word, register, like that. There we are. So now, if I'm not mistaken, if I scroll down, this is a lollipop chart. How would I know this is a lollipop chart? Well, let's start to put in some basic adjustments. In this case, what I would like to do here is this bar should be more narrow because it becomes a stem, or basically a narrow bar chart, or bar. So we know by default, if we put in here comma, I'm going to say here bar percentage, we can say 0.5, and if I save this, it becomes narrow. But what I want to do is I want this now as default being loaded in here. So what I'm going to say here, I'm going to add a new item, we call that the bar percentage, and then make it 0.5. And as you can see here, nothing changes. However, because this is here being set as the default for this bar controller, which is connected to the lollipop controller, because it's an extension of, it will not impact standard bar, because we will put in here bar, and you will see the bar will just function properly as a standard here. So what we want to do here next is start to go a bit more deeper. So let's start to add 1 or 2 more items in here. What we can say here, for example, here the borders. Let's do here border skipped, set it on false by default. On a bar chart it is true. So if I say here now on the Lollipop chart, you will see that this will work nicely. We have a bar here, and finally a border radius, so we make it nice rounded. Border radius, and I'm going to say the border radius will be, I'm going to make here a very high number, and I'll explain why. By doing this, it will always force to make it fully round as possible, depending on how big your chart size is. So it will be always nice and round. Of course, you can adjust it to your liking. So now we have this, and that looks absolutely phenomenal.